Your videos are boring, and that's why you aren't getting any views. Now, to keep it simple, this is because people are clicking on your videos but not watching them all the way through. To fix this, you're going to need to know how to increase the audience retention rate using B-roll. And so in this video, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks so that you can shoot amazing B-roll for your YouTube videos so that you can look like a pro.
You got to just press record.
Hey guys, my name is Nolan with Think Media. Now let's get into 5 tips and tricks for shooting B-roll. First of all, if you don't know, B-roll is the footage that goes on top of when you're talking. So let's say I'm making a video about the best ab exercises. I might show you, if I'm talking about an ab roller, I'd show you some footage of someone doing an ab rolling exercise. That footage that you're seeing on the screen is what we call B-roll. Now B-roll is going to work for a cooking tutorial, a product review video, really any YouTube video. You can utilize B-roll to make your edits more interesting. For today's example, I'm going to be shooting some B-roll of a new microphone that we are reviewing on this channel. All right, so tip number 1 is to shoot slow motion. For slow motion, you want your settings to be at 60 frames per second or higher. This could be 120 frames per second, but you definitely want at least 60 frames per second. In just a little bit, I'm going to show you how to slow that down in your editing program, but shooting in slow motion is great for stabilizing some of your footage. When you're shooting in 24 or 30 frames per second handheld, you can get really shaky footage, and a great way to just resolve this is by shooting in slow motion, and this is going to slow down the camera movement and give you smoother handheld footage. It also just looks cinematic and adds a really nice element to your edit. Tip number 2 is to use camera movement. Now you can do this on a tripod. You can also do this handheld. If you're using a tripod, you can get really cool shots just by panning from left to right or tilting up and down to reveal a product or whatever it is that you are shooting. These movements do not have to be crazy. Just adding a little bit of left to right panning can add a lot to your shot. Now the same idea works if you are handheld, but what you want to do is grab your camera with both hands and keep it close to your chest. And this is going to help give you more stable footage when you are shooting a product versus holding out in front of you. This is going to be a lot more shaky, but actually bringing 2 hands to it and maybe even pressing it up against your chest, this is going to help give you the most stable footage possible. And the nice thing about being handheld versus on a tripod is when you're on a tripod, the camera is in one spot panning or tilting, but when you're handheld, you have the option to actually move the camera in space from left to right or up and down. You want to be careful that the footage isn't too shaky, but if you're using slow motion and you turn on the stabilization on your camera and keep it close to you, you can get some really cool moving shots with your camera just by doing it handheld. Another tip here when using camera movement is to add in foreground elements, and this is going to help add more depth to your shot and really spice up your image. Number 3 is to shoot specifics. Now the easiest way to do this when shooting B-roll is to get a wide shot and also get a close-up shot. These close-ups are going to be more of the specifics that I'm talking about, but if you're talking about a specific part of a product, you want to make sure that you get a nice close-up of that so that people can really see what it is you're talking about. And yes, that is my dog in the background. Say hi, Willow. She's tired. Now, one thing that I always do when I'm shooting B-roll is make a shot list because I don't want to forget anything. And so I always make a shot list on my notes app and I just cross it off as I go. I definitely believe that it's better to have extra shots when editing rather than not having enough. So knock out your shot list and then maybe grab a few creative shots just to have as extras. 4th tip, lighting is everything. Now, when it comes to products, I really like to use a backlight. Really, the whole idea here is to shape your light onto the product or the person, whatever it is you are shooting. We want to add dimension and really shape the light and create shadows with our light. Another great hack that I love to do with product shots is actually pick up my light, whether it's an LED light or a bulb, as long as it's light enough to pick up. I like to hold it up and swing it back and forth over the product to get a really cool kind of moving light shot that makes the product look really cool. And number 5 is get creative. You want to experiment with different angles. You can set up a match cut. You can set up different in-camera transitions. These are shots you can think of before actually shooting, but when you're in the moment, feel free to get creative. And if you get a cool idea, just go ahead and give it a try. All right, let's get into the 5 tips for editing B-roll. Number 1 is music sets the tone. If you've ever edited a video, you know that a music can make or break your video. You also know how important it is to find the right music to match the tone and the emotion of your video. And that's why I like to pick a song before I go in and I make a bunch of edits. I'll choose my music first because my edit has so much to do with my music choice. And I love using Epidemic Sound, which is today's sponsor. And if you want a free 30 days, you can use the link in the description or go to thinkmediasounds.com. Now, I've had some questions come in and people ask me, how do you find music? Because it just takes a long time and sometimes it's a real struggle to find the right song for your video. For me, what I love to do is actually go onto epidemicsound.com and go through their playlists. They have so many playlists, and going through those can give you so many ideas, and you can find music that really you would never listen to if you didn't find it in that playlist. Then once I find a song that matches my vibe, I click on similar tracks and I start listening to more music in this genre. Now, a major tip here with adding music to your videos is cutting to the beat. For example, when that beat drops in the song, this is when you want to add in that most beautiful shot that you have, your hero shot. And be listening to the bass and to the snare drum, and actually cutting on the snare drum, for example, is a great way to keep it fast paced and match the music. Tip number 2 is to slow down your footage, and you want to match it to your project frame rate. For example, my videos are in 24 frames per second. So if I shoot in 60 frames per second, I know this is going to be in slow motion. I can slow this down to 40%, and this is going to be 24 frames now. If I have a shot with 120 frames per second, I can slow it down 20%, and this is going to match my 24 frames per second project. Tip number 3 is to stabilize your footage, especially when you are shooting handheld. Now, yes, turn on the stabilization in the camera, and we talked about how to get stable footage, but actually adding a little bit of stabilization in editing can go a long ways. Number 4 is to get creative. Yes, we want to get creative when we're shooting, but we also can get really creative when editing the project. This is where you can start to form those in-camera transitions, but you can also add in text, overlays, different effects to your shot. And this next tip really is my favorite, because this is what makes people really stand out on YouTube when they utilize this, and that is sound effects. Again, Epidemic Sound has a huge library of sound effects that you can use to add into your shots. But if you click on the screen, you can watch a full video breaking down how to add sound effects to your videos to make them stand out.